Good morning. My name's Bud Thompson. I'm with the Nebraska Specialty Group, and we're going to start here. Our panel is coming up. Sit down. Appreciate you all coming. I thank St. Andrews for the use of their gym. Some of you were here last month. How many people, raise your hand if you were here last month? No? Okay. Good. All right. Well, I've spent the last 2 weeks scared to death about doing this, so bear with me. And there's one thing I better do is shut the phone off. Hang on just a second. Okay, we're not going to worry about that now. Okay. So, we are the Nebraska Realty Specialty Group. And over the last 2 years plus, we've been putting on seminars out of Lincoln at St. Mark's Methodist Church down there on the first Wednesday of the month. And we've started now doing these here on the second Wednesday of the month. If you were to go to Lincoln on the first Wednesday, come here, it'd be a rerun. It's the same talk. And I've got the same questions that were asked in Lincoln. And the panel would be a Lincoln panel there and an Omaha panel here. These professionals in their fields, and all I got to do is ask the questions, and we're gonna roll through the group of panelists to answer them. Have you guys turned on your mics? Let me check. Okay, hang on. There you go. I hope everybody got a chance to get some cookies and donuts and coffee. Remind me if I forget, but at the end of this, if you got a badge already, or not a badge, but a name tag already, we're going to have a basket over by the cookies. Put your name tag in there and grab a handful of cookies. I am not supposed to take cookies home. So do that. And I think we're about ready to start. So I'm going to ask each of the people in the panel to do a little 1 minute or 2 minute. And we'll start with Sandy Miller here. Go ahead, Sandy.
I'm not used to using a microphone, so does that sound okay to everybody? I'm not blowing anybody's louder?
Yeah.
Right by my mouth, okay. I raised 3 boys and I usually can project really well, so my name is Sandra Miller. I am owner and operator of Trusted Life Choices. We are a non-medical home care agency serving the Omaha area, Omaha and surrounding communities. We have been in business, this year will be 11 years. We are not a franchise, just we're local here. Prior to opening up Trusted Life Choices, I spent most of my adult career as a social worker, working in some of the large skilled nursing facilities here in town. So it was an easy transition going from working with seniors in the institutional setting to helping them stay at home.
Thanks, Sandy. Catherine?
Hello, I'm Catherine Swarnarski. I have 6 kids, so I could probably get into the parking lot if you didn't, but we're fine. I am the owner and managing attorney at Elder Law of Omaha. We have 3 attorneys and about 8 staff. And we focus our practice on the needs of people over 55, which when I started the practice I was not, but now I firmly am. So definitely have some definitely affinity for this age group of people. We do things like estate planning, powers of attorney, all the things that you need as you age or any age, estate planning documents, but we really drill down on the kinds of things that you need as you get older to allow someone potentially to step in and help you with things should you not be able to. So powers of attorney, estate planning, wills and trusts. We also, one of our main focuses is helping people navigate long-term care. So in our world, if you need to get Medicaid to help you pay for care, spend down is a bad word. We will help you figure out what and how to deal with those costs so that you don't run through your life savings just because you rolled the dice and it came up Alzheimer's or dementia or Parkinson's. We also do end-of-life things, probate and trust administration, so that you can make sure that your wishes are carried out now and in the future when you pass. So I will be speaking later. I have one caveat, or maybe two. First of all, just talking to me today does not mean I'm your lawyer. You can't say that we have, oh, we laugh, but I have to say that. But if you come to my office, you could be. Number two, if you ask me a question, please make it something of general interest and maybe not your own personal issue, because we don't really want to talk about that in a big room full of people. But more general questions are very welcome. All right? I look forward to speaking to you guys.
Good morning, I'm George Simmons with Nebraska Real Estate Specialty Group. We're a team at Nebraska Realty that works primarily with seniors, but we also support veterans and others. The support that we provide is for seniors in various aspects, whether you're aging in place, you want to downsize, age in what we call the right place, house the size that fits you, or if you're moving to senior care, assisted living, or long-term care. Our group can handle all of those transactions. We do things for families that aren't here. You've got someone that has to have everything processed through. We line up people for moving and all the rest of it. We also need to have your house modified so you can stay there. We can line up contractors and come in and help you with applications to get that stuff. There's a ton of things we provide for seniors at any phase that you're looking at.
Thanks, George. Catherine hit the nail on the head. We're not here to sell stuff to you all. We're here to offer education, maybe a little insight, maybe a little encouragement. So don't worry about that. Now, if you go to the tables, those people help us pay the expenses of renting this place and that sort of thing. So they'll want to talk to you. If you have questions, they'll talk to you about what they do. And that's as far as it goes. We're not up here, this is not going to be some kind of infomercial. So relax and enjoy it. Today, our topic is about love, legacy of letting go. Can you hear me okay? Okay, Paul says good. All right. It's about clarity and peace of mind and protecting the people we love. As we age, relationships change. Roles change, abilities change, and while these changes can feel emotional and uncomfortable, they also give us an opportunity to be more intentional about what really truly matters to you. Our panel today represents the emotional, the practical, the planning, and the legal sides of that journey. My role is just to read the questions and smile, and then they answer. So for those of you who are curious, this is actually the same script that Alicia back at the back used last Wednesday in Lincoln. She actually heads up the team of us real estate people that are the Nebraska Specialty Group back there in the back. And she's probably nervous that I'm doing this. I'm nervous too. So our hope is that you leave here today calm, clearer, and more confident about what your next steps might be. Sandy here got a surprise when she showed up because we had a social worker that got injured last night doing probably some physical therapy thing. But so she's going to be double duty. She's going to be doing social work as well as in-home care. So if I accidentally goof up and say, hey, Marcus, that's her. Or if I say, hey, Sandy, that's her. So here we go. It's going to go through these questions. So the first one to Sandy is to set the foundation for everything else that we talk about today. I want to begin with relationships because they are truly at the heart of what matters most. So Sandy, why do relationships matter more than almost anything else as we age?
Actually, relationships do mean, they're very important regardless of our age. But as we do get older, they do become more important. It's maintaining those connections as we age. There's actually science behind it. Those individuals that have and maintain connections, relationships, they have reduced stress, they have lower incidence of depression, they actually live longer. So I think we've heard about people, becoming lonely. It really can affect your psyche. So having relationships and maintaining and being able to maintain those relationships is very important as we age.
No, appreciate that, Sandy. Okay, now it's going to be a question for Sandy. And once relationships are front and center, the next thing people often encounter is change in a very practical sense. What are some of the most common losses you see people struggle with? And the second part of that question, why is giving up certain activities often emotionally harder than people expect?
Well, it does vary from person to person, how they feel about giving up certain tasks. But in my years of experience, what really is, I think, hardest, regardless if you're a woman or a man, it's driving. That, when you have to, and I think at some point, most of us will get to a point when it's just not safe to drive anymore. And that can feel, I think we can all relate to that. It shrinks our world. So, but there's things that we can do that it's not the end of the world. I said I had 3 boys, and my youngest, he says, I can't wait until we take those keys from you. It's like, okay. But yeah, that's hard. But it's also, there's other things like medication management, cooking. One thing, and I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but when you're used to doing things independently in your house, and now, your kids, because it's oftentimes the kids or your doctor, you need somebody to be with you. So now you have some stranger in your home, you've lost that independence, you've got someone there for safety reasons, but those are some of the common losses. And what was the other part of that question?
The other part was, why is giving up certain activities often emotionally harder than people expect?
I think because we associate certain tasks with actually who we are. When I sit across the dining room table from women, older women, they take great pride in keeping a very clean house, being able to cook those Sunday dinners where all of the family can come. And there comes a point when some of those tasks are just a little bit harder to do. And they're not really tasks, they're part of you. And so losing that is very difficult.
I'm going to throw in one question. As a matter of fact, this is going to go on for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to everybody and just ask questions, eat cookies, whatever. But the question I've got is, and I've experienced it, is after a 50-year career of doing work and doing well, is changing the mental attitude that, no, I can't go buy a new pickup. I got to cut back. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yes, because as we do get older, that's absolutely true. It came up with me and my husband. I wanted to get a dog. I do have several dogs. I wanted to get a puppy. And it's like my husband looked at me and goes, and how old are you? And how old will you be when that dog is like 10 years old? And it's like, well, it kind of hits home, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. Now,
Yeah.
we got the pickup, or the puppy, not the pickup. But thank you for that. Moving along, the next one is for George. Change can be difficult, but planning can sometimes be a relief. George, how does having a legacy plan reduce mental and emotional stress?
Having walked through yourself, and particularly walked through with your family, with your kids and whatever, go through everything related to it. We've got a plan for workshops we're doing in Lincoln. And you look at the amount of information you have to collect about each individual family, your birth certificates, marriage licenses, you know, your passports and all those things. And then you start going down. I started using a planner that was done by the Life Office. And it was a nice, complete planner for 20 years ago. And then when I got down to a thing called the web, and there was nothing in there for it. You know, how many places do you go on the web and buy things? How many accounts have you put in the web so that you can do something? And if something happens, how do you find it? You know, a good example. We took a short vacation last year, took to a restaurant, paid for it with a debit card, we got back in the room, not have a debit card. We never did find it, got online real quick, shut it down. Got a new debit card, it's a new number. Where do I use that thing? I'm going through bank statements, line by line by line. I got it embedded here. I turned that over to Laura that we're working with down there, and he says, you forgot subscriptions, dual key authentication, and what about crypto wallets? And I'm looking like, okay. He says, I've got a lot of clients that are seniors that have crypto wallets. So do you have a hotkey, a cold key, a paper key? You know, I mean, how would you find that stuff? And how would your kids find that stuff if it's not in one location? Now, apparently the thought of thinking about this is more than some can handle, because I got a call yesterday. I'm not going to do the workshop. She said, I just don't need that. And I know the woman, she does need that. You know, but it's, I don't want to think through all of the things about the life. A collection of where are all your documents? Who's the attorney for your wills, your trust? Where do you contact them? Is a copy here, or where do you have the things you want? What are you going to do with the things that you have? Because guess what? Your kids don't want your stuff. If you've moved lately, you know, every time we've moved, the biggest for us is we moved to Springfield, Missouri for a few years. And we hauled all the kids' stuff out, and all when they come over, they look around, they go, no, we don't want it. So we started selling China dolls that my daughter had collected, and nutcrackers my son had collected. You know, never was there. But dealing with that and just not leaving that in the hands of the family when you get there. But there's a lot of information. We're taking this thing in 3 shots, because if I gave you 80 pages of information to fill out, most people would just throw it in the trash and walk away from it. But it's a necessity. You walk into your attorney, they're going to want to have some of this. You want to sell your house, your real estate agent needs some of the information you've got. If you need health care, what insurance, you know, something comes up and it happens to you. I broke my ankle a year ago in December, suddenly I needed home health care. Who do you call? Who's the people, the doctor you get involved with, what are policies and stuff? How quickly can you find all that stuff? You have it, you're going to feel a whole lot more comfortable with it. And if you've got it and your kids have been involved in it, they're going to feel more comfortable with it.
Thanks, George. That leads right into what Catherine, as an attorney and the owner of Elder Law, that's her specialty. So legal planning is often the part people avoid the longest, and yet it has a big impact. So Catherine, how does legal planning help families avoid conflict and confusion? And the second part of that question is, what legal gaps most often create the stress that causes the conflict?
So it's hard to face, but at some point in our lives, almost all of us will need a trusted child, a niece, a dear friend to step in and help us make decisions, both financial and medical. And to choose the right person, to choose that kid that is going to be able to make those decisions. I always joke that I have 6 kids because I needed to find at least 2, one to be my financial and one to be my medical. So sure enough, I've got a son who is still wearing the same socks I bought him in college, and he's almost 40. And I have a daughter that's an RN, so I've got a financial power of attorney and a medical power of attorney in my house. And the rest of my kids will act interested and send money probably, but whatever, that works for. But picking that trusted person or people to make decisions for us as we age is extraordinarily important. I am all about wills and trusts and all that kind of stuff, but frankly, your stuff will trickle down to your kids by force of law. If you want a fairly standard way of leaving your stuff to your spouse and to your kids, that can happen. But it's the things that happen before you pass that is going to be the most important. The fact that you need a financial power of attorney, you need to appoint somebody to make financial decisions if you are unable or unwilling. You got to have a medical power of attorney so that they can make decisions if you are unable or unwilling. And then you need to tell those people how you feel about stuff. And that's where an advance directive comes in. But we can't just assume that our spouse can make decisions for us. Unless all of our accounts are joint, and not everybody has that, spouses cannot just step up and make money decisions. If you own a farm in your own name, if you have an IRA in your own name, if you have accounts in your own name, you have to appoint your spouse, and then a child, potentially, or a niece or a nephew, or somewhat younger, to make those decisions. Medical the same way. Even though you've gone to the same primary care physician for time immemorial, they're still, if something bad happens, going to say, we need that document signed correctly and recently for us to be able to allow your spouse, your kid, whomever, to make medical decisions if you are unable or unwilling. And that is the huge gap that's occurring with people. They think, oh, I've got a will, I've got it all. It's like, yeah, not really. What you have is stuff after you die, but after you die, it doesn't matter that much anymore. What it matters is when you're alive and you need somebody to help you. Now, the mistaken thing, though, is that people say, oh, if I appoint them, they're going to take all my power away from me and I'm not going to be able to make my own decisions. And that is completely untrue. That's even actually illegal. Because you have to be unwilling or unable to make those decisions before those people can step up. So it is just, they're sitting out there waiting, they're going to deal with what has to be dealt with, but they're not going to be able to do that until you are unable or unwilling to do so. So don't hesitate because you don't want to become less somehow as you age. By appointing a good person to make decisions, you're going to become more because you know that you have someone that's going to carry out things the way you would want them. And that's the important part.
Thanks, Catherine. That's good. Okay, back to Sandy. As relationships evolve, people often experience grief that isn't always talked about. How do people grieve relationships that are no longer what they used to be? And how can someone let go of a relationship that no longer serves them without guilt?
I think when we think of grief, we think of someone passing away and we're grieving. And of course, that's legitimate and we do. And it is grief. But as we lose, as relationships change, there can be grief when a spouse has become a caregiver. Or even when the children see their parents not as they used to be when they were in their prime, in their 30s and 40s, maybe 50s. And I don't think we talk about that. We don't honor that feeling as grief. So we sometimes stuff it down, and it can become anger, it can become sadness, depression. People withdraw. So I think we need to talk about that. You know, as things change, it's okay to miss that one aspect of that person because everything changes. I mean, life is from the time you're born to the time we all pass. Our roles change, our bodies change, and as that happens, it does affect other people. It affects us. So.
Second part was, so how can someone let go of a relationship that no longer serves them without guilt?
Boundaries. And I think that sometimes some of us have a hard time putting boundaries in place. But boundaries are important regardless of your age. And there will be people in your lives, regardless of your age, that people that you might even still care about and love, but the relationship no longer serves you. I think it's sometimes hard to say to people, I really really, I love you, I respect you, but we just need to, step away. Because we have to take care of ourselves. Boundaries, I think, and I see a lot of women in the audience, and not that men don't have boundary issues, but women particularly, we have trouble saying no. We have trouble, putting that boundary because we're taught that we're here to help people. We're, givers. But as we age, it's important anytime, but as we age, it becomes even more important.
Okay, the second part of that question is for now the other Sandy. Or, go ahead, Sandy. Yes.
I was gonna say, I thought I did the second part. I was Marcus. Now I'm Sandy.
Yeah, now you're Sandy.
Okay.
So in this case, that emotional struggle often shows up when people are deciding whether or not to accept help. I think of myself. My son wants to come mow my lawn. I say, get out of here, mow lawn, But go ahead, Sandy.
No, that's it. I think we become those tasks. We become the man that can do their own lawn. Why do we need help with that? But we do. You had 6 children, and I have 3. My oldest, Nick, he's going to be the one that's going to be in charge, and so I'm trying. Sometimes I don't do well. I'm trying to do what he says. I'm 66 this year, and I know that as I age, Nick is going to become more and more that person. So I'm trying to get used to that. I don't always mind what he says, but I do try.
So there's some areas that you need help earlier than other areas, right?
Yes, I think that, and if we can accept that help earlier, it makes it easier as we age.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And could I just say something to kind of go on what George had said?
Sure.
You had said that your children, you invited them over and they really didn't want your stuff. I just want to tell everybody here, we talked about that as some people came by my table. Don't let that hurt your feelings. Kids these days, they don't want your stuff. I shared this story. I was at an estate sale, and I collect Fiestaware, but I really can't afford it. But this person had like a bunch of chipped Fiestaware that dealers don't want. But so we were working out a deal. So it happens, Nick called me, what are you doing, Mom? And I said, I'm just buying more stuff that you're gonna have to get rid of when I die. So it was like, great, because I know no one's gonna want my cracked Fiestaware. So I just wanted to put it out there. I know we put a lot of pride and we love our belongings, but
This was their belongings that we had. We had stored their treasures for all of these years.
Our rule has been for my kids, because my admin over there, who's also my cousin Anita, is sitting over there, and she knows that I have this penchant for getting rid of stuff. But when our children bought a house or moved in somewhere permanently, I have their baby boxes and their things, and I just take it over and give it to them. I don't give them any opportunity to say no. As a matter of fact, when my son moved to Chicago, I actually loaded up 2 extra suitcases and took all of his stuff to him and said, "Here, Ben, here's your stuff." No discussion, and that gave him the opportunity to get rid of it instead of me. So I wasn't being a terrible person. I'm sure I left the house and he got rid of all of it, but he had that opportunity, and so I just gave it to him. And that seems to be something that works out, because I can't possibly store 6 kids worth of stuff forever and ever, amen. But give them the opportunity. The converse is true though, because when my husband moved out of his mom's home, she got rid of all of his stuff. And it was like Johnny West collectibles and things like that. And he has been grieving that stuff for 40 years. So that's kind of the thing I think you have to think about, is that I think we need to give them the opportunity, make it so that they need to take their stuff, but make them the ones that decide whether they're going to keep their things or not. And circling back to the no, that's my mantra with my clients as well. Your kids don't want your crap. Your kids don't want your crap. Because they are happy to take your IRA, but they don't want your stuff.
You know, we had, with my mom, we grew up in Scottsbluff, and we drive out to visit her, and we had to leave space in the back of the vehicle because we were gonna come home with stuff. And my kids laughed, he said, Dad, you put everything in there that Mom said. I said, yes. He said, then you drove around behind the place and emptied it in the dumpster. And I said, I wasn't taking the stuff home. But the stuff we did take that we knew was valuable was in our basement until my mom died. Because I said, if she comes down and asks about this, that item is going to be there. And when she died, everything went on sale. We get rid of it.
It's been a huge blessing to me because my mom has moved from her 2,000 square foot house to an independent living apartment. She did a big purge. And now she has moved to my sister's home because everybody in independent living was too old and too sick. She's 88. So she moved to my sister's home and got everything into a 10 by 10 bedroom. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is such a blessing. Thank you. Because I can deal with that. It's a 2,000 square foot house. I was younger, I was more willing to do it then, so it's been good. So even a staged downsizing instead of doing it all one time might be something that is more palatable. But I am very grateful to her to do that, and it's a lesson for me and my husband, who is a hoarder, I swear, that we are going to downsize over time because I do not want my kids to have to deal. It's just, it is, we all see it in our practices and our businesses. Mom dies unexpectedly, and there is a whole house full of stuff. And I just don't think that's fair to kids either. I mean, it's a lot when they're dealing with their own families and their own children and their jobs to have this home that they have to deal with. And it's something that you can do as a gift to your kids to do that before you pass.
Thanks. We'll go to George for a second. George, there's a question here you've kind of addressed, but I'm going to lay it on you and see if you want to add something to it. That's, once people are emotionally ready, planning often becomes possible. How does planning free people to focus on relationships instead of on stuff?
Well, I think we talked about that quite a bit. You know, first off, relationships are paramount to do it. And if you can get rid of the stuff, the junk that you're dealing with, you've got time to do that. Plan it, figure out what you want to do, and then you free up your life to focus on what's important. And everywhere you go, today, it's really neat to see people working on community, find groups, working with a woman who's finally made a decision. We're going to list her house and she's going to go in, but she's got a group of friends. And we're sitting there saying, okay, what's the day you're moving from the house? And she's going, we need it. I've got my calendar here. I need to put it on because we will be here that day to move you out. And she put it on. And then they said, okay, then you'll be done by the following weekend and they can have an open house to sell it. And she finally said yes. And in just a few minutes, she sat back in the chair, relaxed. It was like, it was done. No more problems. She'd committed. She'd already gone through organizing her house. It was just the last bits of letting go of the house.
Thanks, George. Catherine, uncertainty often creates more emotional stress than people expect. Why do people underestimate the emotional impact of legal uncertainty? And how does clarity help families act with confidence instead of fear?
Well, I think we all avoid things that we perceive to be unpleasant. And so not thinking about our incapacity or our passing is something that it's avoidance. It's basically that way. But we all see all of the people around us that are aging. Sometimes, one of my grandsons had his first communion this weekend, and my husband, who's a sacristan at church, they asked him to carry up the cross. And as he's walking up there, I'm thinking, who is that old dude? Because we've been married for 44 years. I met him when I was 17. I don't see him. I see him as, I see his soul. I don't see his body. And sometimes when I see how gray he is and things, I think, oh, we are getting older. It's happening. And I think that that's the issue as well, is that we don't see it in ourselves. We see it in the people around us. But we have to recognize that we are doing that as well. And putting things in place ahead of time, doing it when we are well, is going to be so much less stressful on us and on the people around us than waiting until that bad event. And that's what an elder law attorney is always involved in, is this senior is doing fine, or this couple is doing fine, and they're doing their things, they're getting up in the morning, and they're going to go walking, and they go to lunch, and they meet with friends, and then something happens. She falls. Gets a bad diagnosis. Somebody passes, and then all of a sudden, the whole dynamic is changed. And now they're not in the same place to be able to put all that good planning together, because now they're also dealing with a crisis. So getting that stuff dealt with when things are calmer, when you're still in control, when all those things are happening is amazingly important. And I think that gives some peace of mind. It is hard to wake up and say, today is the day I'm going to take care of these things. But just making that appointment, that doing that thing, taking the first step. You're saying that your person was putting that date off forever and ever. And I can't tell you how many people that come into my office that say, I've been thinking about this for 5 years. And I always think, oh, thank God that nothing bad happened, and that 5 years you were thinking about it, because it happens unexpectedly. So doing the things so that you can stay in control as much as possible, but you have to do it when you're still well. I mean, it is never too late. I would say when you pass, or you're very far gone in the throes of Alzheimer's, perhaps it is. But an awful lot of people can still make decisions even though they are failing. But the best time to do it is yesterday. And the best time to do it is when you are still able to make those good decisions, and to bring those loved ones in, the ones that you know are the ones that are going to make the decisions for you. I also would caution against saying, oh, I've got 6 kids, I'm going to appoint them all. No. Committees, when it comes down to these kind of difficult decisions, are endlessly awful. So pick that trusted child, or a couple of children, or that niece or that nephew, and make them the person. Get the documents in place, and then don't worry about it for another 10 years, because I have to see you every 10 years, unless something really changes, but you've gotten it in place. It is taken care of, and that's one more thing off the list. But the time to do it is always now, and we know that with everything. The time to start exercising and eating right is now. The time to do everything is, but really, when it comes to legal documents, time is going by, and there may come a time in the not too distant future when you can't, or you shouldn't, and that's going to be a difficulty as well.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, Sandy, the social worker. As people look ahead, they often wonder how to stay connected while still protecting their peace. I'm going to throw an example out there. We're blessed with 2 kids with 2 families. Our son and daughter, our daughter's family is all in Papillion. Our son's family is all in Bennington, and we're in Miller. So I think it works out pretty good that way. What do you think, Sandy?
So protecting your peace?
Yeah.
I think it comes down to boundaries. Again, we talked about that a little before, and you brought up your kids, and we all love our kids, we all love our family, but you're right. We have to put those boundaries in place, not just for the neighbors, but also for the kids. I have visited with a lot of seniors that I'm thinking need a little help themselves, and yet they're every weekend they have the grandkids that they're babysitting. So I think we do need to be able to preserve our peace and do what we need to do, even when it's family. Even when it's family. My youngest is almost 30, not married, and I had told him, hopefully this isn't sharing too much, but I am not the grandma. If you have a child, I am not the grandma that's going to take care of that baby. You're an adult. So I have put that boundary in place. The other 2 are married, so they, but yeah, you have to be able to do that, and you shouldn't feel bad about that. You shouldn't feel bad about that.
Thank you. Now for the in-home care, Sandy.
Okay.
Preserving relationships often means letting go of tasks. How does support actually protect relationships within families? And what do families misunderstand about in-home care?
I think what families and individual misinterpret or don't understand about in-home care is that we are not there. In-home care providers do not come in to take your independence away. We really are there to support that independence. When you have, I have sat at a dining room table, and I remember this very specifically. The daughter had called me and said, I need help. And like Catherine had said, you know, oftentimes I get called when it's just like they are at the end of their rope. Now they need something rather than kind of planning and putting things in place prior. And the daughter said, I just need help. And she was sitting there and literally crying, tears running down her face because between her family and taking care of her mom, and working. And the mom just looked at me and she goes, I don't need your help, hon. I have my daughter right here who was literally crying. And so it's hard to let somebody come in and help you with those tasks. But when your children or your niece or nephew turn into your caregiver, it changes the whole dynamic. They're no longer the daughter that wants to come and take you shopping and go get your nails done. She's the one that's reminding you to take your pills and having to scrub the floor and making sure the laundry is done and taking you grocery shopping. All of those things are tasks that someone else can do so your daughter can be your daughter or your son can be your son.
You know, this is off topic or off script, but in January we helped a family buy a house, and the guy had just retired from UPS as a commercial pilot in Kentucky, and his mother lived in Kentucky with him. And a house came up for sale directly across the street from the daughter, brother, sister. And we put it together where the Kentucky son, the retired pilot, and his mom came up from Kentucky and they're living across the street from the daughter and her husband. What would be your first comment about something like that?
Well, I would want to make sure everyone was on board with that because daughter is now thinking, oh, my mother-in-law is living right across the street.
Her mom.
Oh, her mom. Okay, so the son was saying my mother-in-law. So no, actually, it depends on the family dynamic. Sometimes that's very nice because now it's not just the son, the Kentucky pilot son, that can keep an eye on mom, but people right across the street can come over and help mom. So there's someone close but not living with her. So it can work out.
Okay. And back to George over there, how does legacy planning support peace of mind, not just later? And the second part of that is why is planning often delayed? And Catherine spoke to this a little bit, even when people know it's important.
Well, I think we covered the first one a lot about why it's necessary. The why it's delayed, it isn't important at the moment. You get up, you do your daily life, whatever you're going through, there's no problems. Why am I going to sit down and figure out what's going to happen when I get sick or when I die? Until something happens that you get sick or you have an accident, you have a health incident, and all of a sudden it's an emergency. And everybody has a tendency just to, I'll deal with that. I'm not that old yet, I get the mirror, who's that old man looking at me in the mirror? Where did he come from? I passed that point of needing to do that stuff. But I'm going to run some people. We started this process of putting leadership plan together. The call I got yesterday, I don't think I need it. I've not read it. She's in her late 70s, early 80s. She needs it. But it's terrifying to think about it.
Yeah.
I think it's the getting started more than the doing. Just the first thing to sit down and say, all right, I'll find out where my papers are, I'll bring all this stuff together, and then I'll start looking at what we've got. And then after a while, you can like, well, this is good, what about this? I got this taken care of, we put it aside. We just have fear of change.
Okay, now to Catherine. and we've bounced around and tried to get legal clarity. It's one of the strongest forms of protection. What happens when decisions are left to others without guidance, and how do legal documents help preserve dignity and personal wishes? Just summarize that one. You've talked about it a lot.
You bet. I guess what I would want to emphasize at this juncture is the documents that you did in the service before you went off to Vietnam, or that refer to your children as babies and any afterborn children when they're in their 40s, are not going to be good for you anymore. So when people bring in things on onion skin and we blow the dust off of them, these are not going to be appropriate for your state in life. So there are legal documents that are done that are really focused on younger folks, people with kids, appointing guardians, all the things. And there are legal documents that are really focused on the needs of older people. More generalist attorneys do a lot of things. House closings and real estate and divorces and things like that. They are not focused on the needs of older people. There are elder law attorneys, estate and probate people, people like me, that really know the language that is important to allow somebody to make decisions for you if you are unable or unwilling to do so for yourself. So doing planning at one point is lovely, but doing planning closer to the time of need is going to be so much more directed at what you really want. There's also the horrible specter of family estrangement. So those people that you appointed 10 or 15 years ago may not still be in your life, either through choice or through death or through other things. So now we did the planning, we did all the stuff, but those people are not the right people any longer. So we need to do these things closer to the time of need. Now, I'm not saying wait until the day before, because that's not going to work out really well. But to get this stuff in place for who we are now, for what our relationships are now, for the people that we are with now, is going to be so extraordinarily important. I know a good group of people that appointed a spouse and nobody else to make decisions for them. That was fine until their spouse passed or became ill themselves and was unable to make decisions for them any longer, and there were no successors appointed. So going somewhat deep with who you need, appointing a first person, then a second person, if they are going to be too busy or out of the country, or simply are not in your life anymore, is so important so that we have choices if the time comes and you need stuff done. So thinking about what is going to happen is hard, but to think about what's going to happen if we don't plan is hard. It's just, now is the time to do all of this stuff, and I can't say that it's too many times because it's so true, but making sure the stuff you're doing, the legal, the financial power of attorney, the healthcare power of attorney, the advance directive, the HIPAA authorization. We also do something called, which is odd, a disposition of human remains. Because if your spouse passes and you have not appointed anybody else to make decisions for you, and you have 6 kids, 3 of them want you to be buried, 3 of them want you to be cremated, and they're all a hot mess. If you have appointed somebody, a child, to make that decision and to talk to the funeral home and say, I know what mom wanted, she wrote it down, she talked to me, all the things, that is your point person, then your family is free to grieve in the way that they do without fighting with each other, because everybody's nose is out of joint because they knew that mom wanted to be buried in the red dress down it, and you picked the blue one, and now they're mad, and now they're not talking to each other. People that are in the business see this kind of stuff all the time. So writing it down, making sure that people know about it, because the other issue is, I'm going to go to my lawyer and do all this stuff, and I'm going to go home and throw it in my safe or my safety deposit box, and nobody even knows I have it. You don't, right? If your kids don't have a copy, either my kids have everything virtually. During COVID, I was bored. My husband and I both got COVID, but we weren't very sick, but we still had to stay home in those days, right? So I got busy and sent all my kids my legal documents on the computer, and they're like, the phone just started ringing. It's like, Mom, you said you weren't that sick. I said, we're not. We just want you to have this stuff, and I'm really, really bored. But muffins and soup and all kinds of stuff showed up on my doorstep, so it was a good thing in that way. But telling people what you have, making sure they have access to it so that they can use it and help you with it is so important. Because if people don't know that you have legal documents, you don't. So getting them done, making sure that they're out in the world, that they're at your doctor's office, that they're your financial advisor, that they're at your bank, depending on what kind of documents they are. is that second step that so many of my clients don't take. And go to the trouble of doing the stuff, but then go to the trouble of, Thanksgiving dinner when everybody's got a couple glasses of wine, and it's a lovely time to discuss all this stuff. So say, you know what, I want to sit down, I'm going to give you guys my photocopies of all this stuff. It also gives the kids time to work through the issue of they weren't the ones that were appointed, right? So multiple families, if you have multiple children in your family, you're going to pick one or two at the most. The other four need to know that this is not necessarily an honor, it's a pain in the butt. They're going to be glad they were picked, and then they will get over their issue with not being picked way before your other child has to do what they have to do, so that there's not upset at that time. We should not have secrets. We should know where the bodies are buried, and get those things worked out ahead of time. Because when the time of need, when the time of real emotional and physical and all that kind of stuff is going on, it's not the time to be dealing with legal crap, right? We want to do it safely ahead of time, get it out there, and then revisit it every 10 years or so, because times and people and things change. So make sure that you update, make sure those people are still in your life, that they're still with us, all that kind of thing. But those are the kinds of things I would tell my older self if I wasn't going to pay attention to it. And I think that you guys should consider that as well.
Thanks, Catherine. Okay, we're going into the final round now, but there is one more topic that I think should be talked about a little bit. So Sandy, the social worker, gets this last question. And if you and other two have something you want to add to it, this will be the time. But first to Sandy, as people reflect on all of this, forgiveness often comes up. What role does forgiveness play in peace of mind later in life?
That's a big question.
It is.
Forgiveness. I think if we're talking about forgiveness, we need to start with ourselves. And sometimes we're our own harshest critic. And as we age, things change. We all change, and it's nothing to, we go through grieving, and we go through, sometimes anger and adjustment. But being able to forgive ourselves, is very important.
Thank you, that's good. Okay, Catherine?
I think as we age, we start to understand that we should not sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. To hold grudges, to be upset for a long time, first of all, takes energy that we should be spending on more positive pursuits. Second of all, at the end of time, the fact that your sister was rude to you at your second cousin's wedding doesn't matter at all. What matters is that your sister is standing beside you in the important things in life. The fact that your child ignored your advice as a younger person and did something that you don't agree with. So many times, I feel like a broken record, but my whole mantra is get over it and move on. None of these things are the big things in life. The big things in life are that your loved one is well and with you, or if they are not, that you are caring for them in the most appropriate way possible. But I'm not going to hold on to the old uglies, because the old ugly does not matter in the things that are happening with us now. And at the end of the day, and when we all pass away, I do believe in a higher power. I believe I'm going to have to account for myself someday. And the fact that I carried a grudge for 50 years is not something I'm going to have to explain. I want to just move forward with life, enjoy the things that are left to us now, and not be spending all of my time, my emotional energy, brooding on the things that I can't go back and change, but I can only move forward. And I think that as we get older, it's important to keep that kind of stuff in mind. That the people that are with us now are the most important people, and we need to be present in the now and not be present in the past.
Thank you. George, would you like to add something about forgiveness?
In our family, we've got 5 kids. My older brother and sister both died of lung cancer in their late 40s, early 50s. It's quite a number of years ago. I've got 2 younger sisters, and the youngest one I haven't spoken to in 5 years. significant political differences between two faces of the family. And we had a call last week, the week before, she's got cancer. And suddenly, you know, more than calls, it's because of the family history, he's gone through this stuff. And so we talked back and forth. We had different mothers, it isn't necessarily the same family history, you know, and she's like, this is how I was treated in the hospital. I was on a gurney instead of in the emergency room. And I said, get over it. I broke my leg. I was at Ryan Hospital in Lincoln on a gurney in the hallway. They did the whole procedure out there, you know, but they were busy. It wasn't about her and all that stuff. Over the next 2 weeks, the communication started. We've talked to each other every day, all three of us, since this has happened. You know, and the rest of the family is saying like, I'm sure Glenn, Margaret, and Kathy are talking because they really were bad at each other. And now we're walking through this, you know. And my sister's finally, okay, I'm getting the board, I'm ready to do this. My daughter and I are going down to find a way. I don't know if we're gonna paint on her, you know, different kind of nice, it's, you know, back, so are you one of those blue hairs, are you? And she doesn't view herself being old. But we're not talking. And we put together all the rest of that stuff is gone. And it's dealing with her mortality and ours along with it. The middle sister, she retired from nursing, worked in oncology for quite a number of years, has the living wills, everything done. I said, how are you gonna deal with it? She said, I wanna have DNR tattooed on my chest, so when they open it up, I know. And she said, yes, sir, I want to make sure somebody asks the question, you know, before they get to it. But everybody started, we need to think about it, we need to prepare about it, because it's different. And the whole environment changed.
Thanks, George. In conclusion, if today stirred something in you emotionally or practically, that's very normal. Conversations about love, legacy, and letting go often bring clarity, but they can also raise new questions. For some of you, today may simply be about reflection. For others, you may feel ready to take a small step forward. I want it to be clear that the next step does not mean committing to everything. It simply means gathering information and moving at a pace that feels right. And down in Lincoln, George and attorney Josh Penniman are offering workshop-style settings where they will walk you through the legacy planning and legal clarity step by step. It feels like a good step. I encourage you to stop at and see George, but also in Omaha we haven't gotten to the point with these seminars where we are prepared to do workshops, but we've got Catherine and her table right over there, and obviously she knows her stuff. So if today's isn't the day for action, that's okay. Sometimes the most important steps are simply knowing your options. So actually, if anybody would like to ask a question, we're going to get a microphone to you. And we'll take about 5 or 6 questions. Anybody got a question? We'll get a mic to Joe. Here he comes. Big tall Joe. If anybody was here last month, Joe did calisthenics for the whole group and made the whole group do it, but I'm too lazy.
We can do that again today.
Hello, thank you for this seminar. I was questioning, I have only one child, and we have papers, but maybe I need to talk about financial, medical, and what was the other one?
Advanced directive.
Pardon?
Advanced directive and HIPAA.
Okay, I have that. I was wondering, in the state of Nebraska, is it necessary for me to have a last will and testament when I have only one child?
So that's a complicated question. Technically, your stuff will get to your one child, right? If you had something other than that, then you would want to be more specific. The issue with not having a will, not having a trust, is that it is called something called intestate succession. And it is a more formal, more complicated, more expensive process. And so I would say, if you want to save your daughter hassle, that's an old-fashioned word, but I love it, then you would do some planning now, and so that she would have less to do after you pass away. But also make sure that your wishes are carried out. Maybe you want to make a bequest to a church, or to a charity, or to the Alzheimer's Association. You would want that written down, because daughter doesn't have to do that. I mean, you can talk to her all day long. If she doesn't choose to, she doesn't have to. So if you have charities, if you have a blended family, if you have to remember grandchildren, lots of things can say, I need to do it now and write it down. But your stuff will not go into the stratosphere if you don't. It will trickle down to people. It will just take longer and be more expensive.
Okay, I have another question. This actually occurred with my mother. Now it's dead. Is it a smart idea to have for example, my daughter's name on my car title?
No, absolutely no. It is not a smart idea to have your kid's name on your deed to your home. It's not a smart idea to have your kid's name on your car title. Now, with the right of survivorship all day long, but not to have your child actually own the asset. Because I don't know about your kids, and I love my kids to death, but they're dumb. And they do stuff. They get divorced, they get into bankruptcy, they invest in businesses, they get into tax issues. I don't want my stuff sucked down that rabbit hole. There are legal and ethical ways for me to allow my children access to my stuff without having them be able to pledge it for a debt or have it be levied on by the IRS. So no to bank accounts, no to houses, no to cars, unless you do it.
Either?
No, because if you have a financial power of attorney, or you have a revocable living trust that the kids are trustee of, they already have access to your stuff, but in a limited and controlled way, and it's not going to be subject to their life choices. And that's the big problem. Because I've had people come to us and say, oh my gosh, help me. My kid is getting a divorce. I put my kid's name on my house for convenience, and now that divorce attorney says, oh look, your mom's house is in the play too now. You don't want that. But if they were trustee of a trust or financial power of attorney, the kid could do what they needed to do without putting your stuff at risk, and that's important.
The other thing I thought about too, with regard to car title, let us say I got it off my mom's, okay, because I thought, well, what if she has a big, huge accident? Somebody gets sued, they can take my house perhaps too.
You could be sucked into litigation if you don't want to be sucked into, absolutely. But there are ways to deal, but they're a little more complex than just doing that. But they're safe.
Right now, everything is fine. Your children are influenced by their spouses.
Yeah.
So I don't remember
Well, that's the other thing as well, is that I will have people come and say, I love my daughter-in-law to death, and I want her to take, if my son passes, I want her to get his share. It's like, now you have just put your estate plan in the hands of somebody else, and I have a child that is divorced, unfortunately, 2 children that are divorced, and I don't like their exes anymore, and I don't want them to inherit from me, so I would never put them in. Theoretically, if you leave something to your child, they're going to share with their husband or wife, right? And if they pass before you, the stuff's going to go to your grandchildren, and that's as it should be. But we don't want to let our kids' choices affect our estate. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
So a person really should go see a lady like you or a gentleman.
Somebody that does this kind of stuff, absolutely, it's important.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? There's one.
There's always one in the crowd who says, I don't have a question, but I have 3 comments. But I do want to share this because I've been through some situations that you kind of skirted on today. One was actually not personal, but it was a situation my cousin had to deal with. His father died, my uncle, and he's still 5 years later finding stuff that his dad didn't tell him about. And even though he and his dad had a relationship like this, and they were so tight, his dad still held things close to his vest, close to his chest. And my cousin was finding documents that he didn't know existed. So, you know, I would encourage everybody to make sure that if you don't trust your kids, write it down somewhere anyway, because it's going to have to be dealt with. The second thing is I recently dealt with a death in my family where the person died intestate. Not only did he die intestate, but he died without anybody knowing his cell phone passcode, his Apple ID passcode, his bank accounts, nothing. And we have, you know, we've just been dancing in the dark, so to speak. So I'm a big believer, I don't know if you want to call it, George, a formal Knox box, but I am a big believer in bringing all of your documents together in one place so that, and don't forget those passwords. If you die unexpectedly, this was my son, he was 46. You know, we all think we're gonna live forever. He thought he was gonna live forever too. Get those passcodes down. Third comment, and I'll cut it short. I had the great privilege of working with Catherine 12 to 15 years ago to help with my mother-in-law who was reaching the end of her assets. She was in long-term care and she outlived all the actuarial predictions and actually outlived her long-term care benefit. And so we had to start a spend down to get her Medicaid benefits. I'm listening to you today and I'm remembering how great it was to work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay,
So, just one more thing. You
Go ahead.
mentioned NOC. So NOC is an acronym for next of kin. And you can get a whole, so you can go inexpensively, where you can just buy the tags and things to put in a box, or you can buy the box. And what it does is this file folders, where it says, you should put this in this file folder, insurance stuff. And you should put this in this file, car stuff. And it lays out everything so that if your child needs to deal, it would be on the shelf in your den or underneath your kitchen table or someplace safe. They would be able to open that up and say, oh, it's all here, and it's going to be so much simpler for me to deal with. It costs about $100, and they're on Amazon. It's NOK. Google it, but they are lovely. We're starting to have them in my office because I'm so. I think that this kind of organization is absolutely. Though I will say, please do not write your passwords on your debit card or your Visa card. I have people that do that all the time. I take fingernail polish or remover and wipe it off because you shouldn't. But writing them someplace else, telling somebody there are things on your computer that you can get that are called password keepers, and just put one thing in and all your passwords are under there. Those kinds of things are going to be so helpful to your kids when you pass.
thanks, Catherine. Okay, a couple last things. We have, one more question.
I have one more question, and it's
Okay.
it's a real estate question.
When I sold and downsized and had to move, I was very stressful at the time. And I got a good real estate because I sold my house, but the stuff inside of it, I never checked the people that were going to sell my stuff and clean my house. They really ripped me off. Is there a place where you could check their credentials? They took all my stuff, and I was so stressed out I didn't even have time to work with it.
Yes, you can do background checks on it, but there's one thing I should caution you with some of us in the real estate business. We're in business to sell houses and get a commission off that thing to do it. And there's a number of our business that are senior real estate specialists in business to sell seniors' homes. Seniors is a big thing. We're a big group, and we're migrating through it. It's a lot to it. The difference with us in our group is we have education partners, we have business partners that we have vetted to do those things. So if we're working with you to sell it, we'll say, this is the person you want to handle the downsizing, here's the person you want to do with the estate sale. We vetted it. If you're an agent can't provide you that, get away from those people. They gotta be vetted. And unfortunately, some people look online, so they got a good reputation online. They've never sat down and talked with them. We go face to face with our contractors to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do, because we want to protect everybody's assets.
Thanks, George. Okay, we want to thank and recognize some people. What is it?
One second.
Hang with me a second.
So my question is for Catherine. Catherine, in real estate, I've had, and in my personal life, I've seen this happen time after time again, where the person who, you know, the matriarch of the family is still left, her spouse has passed away, and she's going to leave her home or her farm, and when it's a farm, the tension is even greater because it's a bigger piece of property and it's worth more. They want to leave it to one child for some specific reason. Maybe that boy is the only son and he's going to work the farm. Or this is the only daughter that isn't married and she's going to leave the home to her. But it creates, she thinks all the family members are on board until that person dies. And then all you know what breaks loose and there's fighting and conflict in the family. What can be done to avoid that sort of situation? And do you ever recommend that they pass along those properties before death to avoid this? Or how would that happen? How would that work out better?
So passing things along before passing can be less advantageous from a tax standpoint, because when you inherit, there is something called inheritance tax in Nebraska, not in Iowa, and that can be something that falls into it, but step up in basis and all the things, you need to kind of look at how that might work if you do it before passing. It sounds mean in a way, but at the end of the day, it's mom's stuff. And she gets to decide how it's going to be distributed. And first of all, she doesn't have to make it totally public before she passes. When you do a will, it can be private until you die. You can keep it wherever you choose. A trust is less private, but that is also a way, though, that you can say ahead of time, I'm leaving this property in trust. And if it's an irrevocable trust, a lockbox trust, you may be able to avoid it ever coming into a calculation if you need long-term care. But the beneficiaries would be known at that point. And if it's going to be one particular kid or one consortium of kids, people know ahead of time. You can explain your reasons, you can tell why it's going to happen, you can explain that you're leaving other assets to the other children, so financially it's more fair. There are things you can do ahead of time to forestall those kinds of issues. The thing is, at the end of the day, your house, your farm, your car, your wedding ring is your stuff, and who you want to leave it to is your decision. And people are just going to have to live with that at the end of the day. And being angry at their sister because their mother left a farm to her makes no sense whatsoever, because mom did it and now she's dead. So you have to follow your heart, you have to do things, and fair is not fair. I mean, life is what it is. If you have a child that absolutely needs more help, or is the one that's farming the farm, do what your heart is telling you to do. You don't have to make sure that everything is, in equal rows. It's just not the way life works out. And then have some peace. And if you feel like talking to the kids about it ahead of time, have a family meeting and say, this is why I'm doing this and I'm not changing it. And if you want to be pissed off at me for the rest of my life, that is your decision. But this is what's happening, and I love you, and this is what's going to happen. I just think disclosure, if you think it's going to work for your family, secrecy if you think it's not. But either way, it's going to be your choice.
Thanks, Catherine. Well, I just say, wow. The panel, professional, skilled, knowledgeable, experienced. I just am so impressed and grateful to this panel we had today. How about giving them a round of applause? Secondly, there are people at the surrounding tables who we call educational partners who help us put this on. So they're there, they're available to talk to them about your questions. I'm going to ask them, some of them have brought, I want them all to come up and be introduce themselves, but some of them have brought door prizes. And if you have filled out your assessment, evaluation, your name will be in a drawing here in a few minutes. So if you got those things and you want to tell us who you were and what you thought of all this, we really do appreciate it for constant improvement. So, can we have the people from the tables? Actually, Catherine, I suppose you could stand up again if you want to. All right, and go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Casey, and I am with Archwell Health here in Omaha and Lincoln. We have 3 locations. We have one on North 90th and Fort. We have a location on 84th and Center, and we have a location on 28th and Ames, and our location in Lincoln is on 40th and Oaks. And how many of you have seen a commercial for Archwell Health? Okay. So some of you are familiar. So we provide primary health care for folks 60 and older here in the Omaha and Lincoln communities. What makes this different is that each of our centers are designed for seniors. We have longer appointment times, 45 minutes to an hour with your provider. We have close parking, and we also have an activity room in our centers. So for those of you that are looking for something fun to do each month, we do things like bingo. We have exercise classes. We have food catered in. We're having an Olympic watch party next week, so I'd invite you to any of our centers to participate in that. Any of you are welcome to come and join. And then we focus not just on your physical health, but your emotional and social health. So again, my name is Casey. Please stop by my table. I've got some snacks over there, and then I've got this plant for a raffle prize.
Good morning. My name is Mary Grossroad, and I'm a senior living advisor with Claire Senior Advisors. But it's fun for me when I just heard George today was reading his bio up here. Way back in 1984, 85, or 86, I worked for Dorsey Pharmaceuticals where George worked. It was nice to meet another Novartis person. But what I do today is, here's a typical scenario for me. Might be talking with an adult child who says, I just don't know what to do about mom. She's not getting out like she used to. When I go over and see her, the house is dark. Maybe she's watching the same channel all day. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. And then I say, start with me. I have over 20 years of experience. In fact, next month I'll be doing this for 24 years. I'm a senior living advisor. What that means is I sit down and visit with people, learn their story, and see if moving to a retirement community is a better option. There's no charge to work with me. There's no obligation. I hear your story. I do the research. I set up tours if you want to go forward and go on the tours with you. It's very rewarding. The reason I do it is I can make such a difference in someone's life. When I meet with someone who doesn't quite understand the benefits of senior living and show them the benefits and it enriches their lives, it's rewarding for me. My name is Mary Grossroad. I'm with Claire Senior Advisors. I have a table over there. So today I have a door prize with wine and chocolate because it's Valentine's Day on Saturday and that's just what I think of. But I also, remember those little conversation hearts we had when we were kids? The little hearts that say love, yum. Well, I got these at Trader Joe's. So please stop by and grab a box. I have enough for everyone, if not, take 2 of them. Thank you. Great discussion. Great panel today. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Joe Camp. I'm also with the Rascarelli Specialty Group. We're a senior-focused real estate team. And one of the advantages of what we do have partners that we vet with and that are vetted that we can recommend for an assortment of things that you might need. In fact, on those surveys, make sure you fill those out and ask the questions about what you're seeking more information on, and we can get you that information. So we have a prize for you as well. It is a plant and some Lindor chocolates. So take a look at that. I think it's a very pretty plant, nice flowers, low maintenance. All right.
Hello again, I'm Sandra Miller, owner and operator of Trusted Life Choices. I did not bring a door prize, so boo. So sorry about that. But we've been in business about 11 years, and our goal at Trusted Life Choices is to offer services for individuals so they can remain living independently in their home. We serve seniors in their home, in their apartments. We go to assisted livings. Right now, we are actually at bedside with a woman that is in a skilled nursing facility because she's a fall risk. So we can really develop a care plan. We see people as 24 hours a day, all the way to people that just need us maybe 3 or 4 hours once a week. We have a staff of about 75 caregivers, and we're not a franchise, we're locally owned. So again, Sandra Miller from Trusted Life Choices. Thank you.
Speaking of companies that I could personally vouch for, I've known Sandra for years and actually do some marketing for them as well. So, great company, great people.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I was talked to you already. We got some stuff over there. What I wanted to point out was, if you like my message, if you would like me to take my message to your women's group, your men's group, your nights group, your senior hack club, we have a listing of things that I speak on. One of the legal documents is a favorite, but I also do a senior scams and exploitation one that is very well accepted. We have a list of what I speak on over there, but I would love to get out. We do a morning thing, I'll bring bagels. If we do an afternoon thing, I'll bring cookies. But for me to get out and give a message to the greater community at large is just such an honor. And if you know somebody, and you are the person that organized speakers for your group, reach out to us, and then we can get you set up. All right?
Thanks, Catherine. Now, if you just want the microphone. Okay, some of you may be familiar with this from last month. If you came and brought a friend, raise your hand. We've got a little special something for you. There's a lady over here in the blue. And if anybody, that lady here with the other blue, we'll get that to you. And now we're going to do it. As soon as that's done, we're going to do door prizes. One last thing. There's coffee. There's lots of donuts. And the cookies came out of the Hy-Vee oven at 8:30 this morning. So they were warm a while ago. So obviously, I should not take them home. So we'll get to that. We hope you'll stop and say hi to the different people with their tables. And we're okay. Okay, let's do the drawing. Everybody got their survey in? Who's got a pile of surveys? I do. All right. Why don't you?
Everybody stare awkwardly at George. I'm going to make him draw.
Is that it? Okay.
Is George doing the drawing on the surveys there?
Yeah, George can do it. He's got an honest face. So, okay, for the plant, that pretty plant over there. Whoops, somebody still do.
Do any more surveys?
Anybody else for your friend?
Here we go. Okay, George.
Which one's this for, bud?
So this goes, that pretty flower goes to Dorothy Millis.
Dorothy, there she is.
And let's see, somebody from Nebraska Realty has to.
We've got a plant here and some Lindor chocolates. Let's see who our lucky winner is.
So I've got a Taylor, I think it's Isabel Taylor. And I recognize that name. There's Isabel Taylor. Yeah. Isabel, do you live over at 55 Connect?
No.
How about Maple Ridge?
No, Bloomfield.
Bloomfield! Yeah, I'm sorry. I got it the third time with some help. Okay, well then. And, oh yeah, Mary Grocer's has something here. Wine and chocolates. Yeah. So that goes to a person, oh, it's Doreen Borgia. Woo! There you go. We appreciate you coming. A month from now, on the second Wednesday of the month, we are going to talk about downsizing and getting rid of clutter, decluttering. Grab cookies, donuts, coffee, say hi to Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out, everybody.